All right. Welcome, everyone. I am Jake Hall, the manufacturing millennial, and I am so excited to have a great conversation today with two awesome dudes I have met recently from Boston Dynamics. Vatche and Caleb, both of you guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. So we're going to be having a great conversation today about agile mobile robots, or what you guys as an audience might be more familiar with as the yellow spot robot. We've all seen, online through social media and viral videos with it dancing and doing all these commercials during the halftime Super Bowl. But we really want to talk today about what actual impact is it having on in the industries, and more specifically, the industry I'm super passionate about is manufacturing. So as we see the industry turn into this robotic, digitalized world, how is robotics impacting the industry? So if you're going to be here in chat, feel free to share the stream. Go ahead and click share. And also would love to know who is here in the audience and where are you from, so Vatche and Caleb can see these conversations as well. So as we get started, Vatche, do you want to give an introduction to who you are, what you do, how long you've been with Boston Dynamics for, and tell about your role as the industrial automation lead?
Sure. So thanks for having us, Jake. I'm Vatche Arabian. I've worked at Boston Dynamics since last July, actually. And my focus is on industrial applications for SPOT. And my background is I came from FLIR Systems. I've worked there for 16 years, working on industrial applications for thermal cameras, fixed sensors, handheld thermal cameras, predictive maintenance, that sort of thing. I've been at Boston Dynamics since July. So
awesome. Caleb.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. So I've been at Boston Dynamics for about 2 years. Previous to that, I was a Spot robot customer. So I was on the other side of the coin, focused on how to get Spot working in the facilities where I was attempting to do so. My background's in computer vision, artificial intelligence, but specifically focused on machine perception. So I definitely have that knack for trying to understand how to get cameras into places that are really hard to get cameras into, which Spot ended up being a pretty interesting solution for.
Fantastic. So welcome, Tim, Hank, Aaron, Jeremy. We're all glad you're here. As we have this conversation continue, we would love to have your questions. We have a lot to talk about today as well. But if you have questions around SPOT or around how agile robots are impacting manufacturing, we would love to have those conversations. But what we're going to be talking about today is kind of leading up to an upcoming summit, and that's the Robotics Summit and Expo, May 10th and 11th in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, SPOT is going to be one of the exhibitors and one of the keynote, well, not SPOT, Boston Dynamics is going to be one of the keynotes at this event, talking from Kevin over on the team. So if you want to learn more about how robotics is impacting the industry, join us in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm excited to go out to Boston. I'm hoping to go and visit Boston Dynamics as well, either a little bit before or after the event. But it's one of those things where feel free to go ahead, look at this attendance, and I'll go ahead and highlight that in the conversation as well. Go to roboticssummit.com. But while we get going, let's talk a little bit about where did SPOT get started? We've seen the videos for years now, from everything from a two-legged robot to SPOT before we even had any type of, exoskeleton or covering. Where did SPOT get started, and how did he become a production product where you can go online and buy one?
Yeah, I mean, so you kind of hit the nail already. Spot is a result of 30 years of innovation. Like Boston Dynamics has been around for a really long time, and a lot of what we learned went into Spot. And Spot as a commercial product has been around for a little over 2 years now. And we're seeing all kinds of exciting use cases, especially in manufacturing.
Yeah, you've seen iterations of robotic dogs from us on YouTube, starting with Big Dog and LS3 and evolving into Spot Mini, Spot, then Spot Mini, now Spot. So there's a lot of work. We went from hydraulic actuation and diesel power to electric power, electric actuation, and you'll see this evolution of this technology, and just an incredible amount of hours into the algorithms of how a four-legged robot should move through the world. So Spot is really the culmination of all of that work coming together in a commercial product.
So to bring this up, so Wildcat, is that kind of an evolution of how Spot got started with that technology? I mean, I remember seeing these things. This video is almost 10 years old now, but a lot of the technology that you've learned from this hopping scenario has really transformed into something a lot tinier and now real world applicable.
Yeah, that's right. If you see a lot of those old videos, it's really amazing to see where we've gotten to now. But that was a diesel powered robot. And so everything from the algorithms that keep the robot balanced and allow it to place its feet, to the way the robot moves through the world and maps its surroundings. That all really started with those early on units that were being developed, really in partnership with DARPA for the most part.
Awesome. And a few more people. Paul, welcome as well from Franklin, New Hampshire. Miguel, welcome from Mexico. Danielle, welcome from Grace Solutions. And then also John, welcome from West Tech Automation. So great to have everyone here. Now, I think one of those things that we want to talk about is there's a lot of different names for Spot. There's the four-legged robot, there's the agile mobile robot. But I think, Vatche, when you and I were having one of those conversations before, it's not just a robot, it's a mobile IoT device. And I think that's one of those things that we need to think of. It's not just a robot that can move around where you can put a payload on it and it's just moving a product or an item on top of it from point A to point B. There's a lot more to that. Can you go into a little bit more depth of what do we think of as a mobile IoT device? And then how does that relate to manufacturing?
Yeah, for sure. So Spot really is a platform for any sensor that you want to put on it, and can move through your facility and collect data points and information about different assets that are too costly or not economical to sensorize. And Spot can move around, take thermal readings, can take acoustic readings, can read gauges, and send that information back to either notify your staff, your maintenance crew, to an anomaly or situation that needs a closer look. And then you can take it even one step further, where you get an alert, and you can go ad hoc and get a second reading or a second look and not even have to leave your desk or not even be in the office, because you can teleoperate Spot. So it really opens up just knowing more about your site and being able to take action on that information.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about like payloads on the robot, I think this is a great example. I happened to see one of these demos in person. I went out to lunch a couple weeks ago. But when we think of IoT devices, it's a platform that a lot of companies can build on top of, right? When we look at the manufacturing industry as a whole, manufacturing has been around for centuries at the end of the day. And a lot of the devices that a lot of the factories and facilities that we built decades ago are brownfield facilities. And when we're developing a new greenfield facility, I think digital transformation and smart manufacturing is built into that layout and that facility, into that process. But brownfield facilities, that was never an intentional design to have, a digital manufacturing or smart manufacturing process, in their facility. And on top of that, there was no intention to have a lot of robotic platforms, especially areas where you can't have treads or wheel robotics traveling around your facility. There's a lot of solutions out there. I was just down at Modex. Boston was at Modex. You guys had an awesome booth there. But there's a lot of limitations when it comes to brownfield facilities. Speak to some of the advantages that a four-legged robot can have on a brownfield site.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the amount of facilities that were built 20, 30, 40 years ago that are still being given the same mandate to get into Industry 4.0, if you will. And so how do they do that? What's the approach? So the options are fixed sensorization, which most brownfield facilities are putting fixed sensors on their most critical assets, but because those sensors are cost prohibitive, the majority, hundreds, maybe thousands of assets aren't being sensorized. And so what are your options? Well, you mentioned a track and wheeled robot. Those aren't going to be able to navigate in the bulk of these facilities. So if you start to think about mobile sensing, I'm going to steal a line from my coworker, Tim Dykstra, who talks about, like, imagine if your most valuable sensor grew legs and was able to make its way around your facility, getting that data proactively, getting that data autonomously, getting that data for you. It's a game changer. We look at, especially when it comes to predictive maintenance, we look at some things like, how do we extend the life of our pumps and our motors? What are the markers? How do we listen? How do we check for vibration? How do we check temperature? Those are the three indicators that something's going to break, right? We want to catch it before it breaks. We want to do prescriptive and predictive maintenance because we know that it's significantly cheaper to fix equipment as opposed to replacing equipment. So Spot's place in those brownfield facilities is to really be that sensing platform. Let's listen, let's look for temperature, let's look for vibration, and maybe we sniff gas. There's a whole plethora of things we can do. The robot can carry 30 pounds, but let's make this robot the mobile sensing platform that we need to go get the data, so that we can start to model that data out and we can get to Industry 4.0. So that's sort of where Spot fits. In the Industry 4.0 challenge, Spot is the data acquisition tool.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think of where we're at in a current state in the industry, there was some news articles that came out where the job unemployment rate is now what it was back in 2019, pre the pandemic. Yet here we are still facing this absolutely massive labor shortage in the manufacturing space. So in the manufacturing world right now, we're demanding flexibility on our processes, from not only flexibility within automation, but flexibility within our workforce. And I think it's one of those things that we can see with a mobile platform. We can create a more flexible adaptation to what we need to have within a large facility, where it might be hard to roll out massive amounts of predictive maintenance and inspection at a facility, where if you have a flexible unit that can do that for you, you have a lot better cost justification. And I think it's one of those things is when we look at the facility, I came across an article, and I wish I had it as a reference, where it talked about the cost of planned downtime versus the cost of unplanned downtime. And that is a direct relation to what is your condition monitoring and what is your predictive maintenance in scale of your manufacturing facility. And I look at that as an opportunity when we see that within an agile mobile robotics platform. One of the questions that came up today, and we have a few more as well. Silvio from Ireland, welcome. Great to have you here. Tanya said yes, predictive and TPM, going off of what you just said, Caleb. There was a question that popped through here. Does it require a dedicated server for SLAM? Does the Spot platform, does that require a server to be running in contingent with its platform?
There's kind of multiple answers to that question. For navigation purposes, in mapping purposes, no. Spot does all of that on board. It uses essentially 3D cameras that are built in its body. It's something we call graph nav. It's SLAM-like. But Spot basically builds a point cloud about 4 meters around its body. It maps its surroundings. And today it's very much a record and playback function when you teach it a path. So you walk it along the path you want it to go to. You stop at the assets that you want to inspect. And we have a really powerful tool we call sensor pointing, where Spot will actually learn, what to zoom in on, where to point its sensors at. But by you telling it, look at this gauge, thermal image of this pump, this part of the motor, check for air leaks in this area. And the robot builds all of that into its map and then repeats it on demand or on a schedule basis. So it's very much a teach it and then tell it to then go execute. There is one component. There's a software we call Scout that allows you to control the robot from anywhere. It's very useful in sort of remote inspections. Imagine you've got an engineer who's a particular SME and they're sitting in one office and there's a facility across the country or the globe, and you need their eyes on a piece of equipment. That software Scout lets you get that robot up, go and get your data and do that inspection. And that software does run on a server that gets installed onto your network.
I think of another one. Maybe there's a server involved or not. I think of the digital twin space. I talk a lot about digital twins. And Spot has the ability to have, it's a platform where manufacturers can create digital twins of the work environment. I think it's extremely important now where are your assets located, especially large facilities, where you don't have the full traceability or knowledge to know where your product is existing or what's happening after every night. Kind of what we've seen in the construction solution industry where Spot is been at before, where we're talking about building a digital twin of your facility or your construction site as it's being built. It could be one of those things where it's rolled out within a manufacturing facility as well to have a consistent understanding of what your facility looks like and where your assets are located.
That's been a really popular use case for us, especially in automotive, right? Where there's new lines coming in, there's changes being made on a fairly regular basis, and you need a record of what's there. One large automotive manufacturer that we're working with shared the story with me that, if you walked around these cells, there's stuff there that we don't know that people put there, and they put it there out of necessity, but we have no real record of it there. We need to know these things, and so what we're seeing is really interesting. They initially were sort of treating scanning like they've always treating scanning with Spot like they've always treated it, where it's once a year, maybe twice a year, outsource it. Company comes in, does the scanning, with the scanner on a tripod. They get their photogrammetry, they get their point cloud. With Spot now, they're going, oh, we can do this a lot more often.
We can do it every night on its own,
and have really up to date data. And the payoff usually comes the first time they scan. So it's a really clear ROI, and then the frequency and consistency of the scan data has turned out to be really valuable.
Awesome. Another technical question. We have a few of those that are hopping in, so I don't want to ignore those. This is from Jeremy. Is there a force torque sense ability for peripherals like the top mounted arm and gripper?
Sorry, repeat that one more time.
Yeah, is there a force torque sensibility for the peripherals on, I think, the top arm that he was talking about, the pincher that goes on top of Spot?
He's getting a little bit out of my comfort zone in terms of ability to answer that question. I'd probably have to defer to one of the engineers on the
okay.
arm.
There you go, Jeremy. Well, you can go ahead with, actually, that brings up a great point. If you have questions or do want to learn more about Spot, you can go ahead, and I'll share this right here. You can go to bostondynamics.com/spot/sales, and you can reach out to them, and they'll get you in touch with applications that way. So that is one thing to look at as well. The one thing that I want to bring up is when we're looking at Spot in a lot of areas. We talked about the brownfield industry, but I think we didn't necessarily hit on the dark, dirty, dangerous, dull environment that manufacturing still exists. We all want to talk about how manufacturing is moving in an industry and becoming a cleaner, safer place. But there's a lot of applications that I can think of that still just have a higher risk area because of the process and the environment that we're in. Foundries and steel mills are one of those areas where you're always going to be dealing with molten steel. There's just one of those things. It's never going away. It's an asset that we need to build things off of. How can Spot, in a way, work alongside an operator where we still have to have these manual tasks? But what can Spot do and work alongside an operator to change the way we're doing those processes in areas that still have that danger to it?
Yeah, what's amazing about Spot is, given that it can go anywhere a human can, you can also send places where, that are purpose-built for humans, but are potentially dangerous, like super loud or high temperatures or other factors that would put a person in danger and be teleoperated. And you don't have to do any sort of preparation for that space that you would have to do for wheeled or tracked robots. And so you create that distance between person and danger, and you can get that information that you need or perform an action that you need, through that remote operation. And it could be through, remote operation on tablet where you're working line of sight, or like Caleb said, you could be, in a workspace or even, across the country or world, and perform that action. And yeah, that can't be understated. That's we're seeing a lot of that in various fields, including manufacturing. I don't know, Caleb, you've got more details on that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see when I've been on site at a lot of these manufacturing facilities. Somebody from the emergency response team or the hazmat team sees the robot and comes asking questions. And so what we've actually seen play out in real scenarios has been sort of a partnering when the robot's not inspecting and we need it for a hazardous situation. There tends to be a tremendous amount of value in not having a person suit up, not undergoing the risk of sending someone into a scenario where there might be gas present, there might be a chemical leak, there might be fire. Let's send the robot in, and the amount of time you can save in order to do that, get eyes on the situation, is pretty tremendous. So we're seeing a lot of sort of collaboration between maintenance teams and emergency response teams to use the robot for multiple purposes like that.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's how do we keep humans safer? An example that I think of is I'm a big SpaceX guy. I have 3D printed rockets behind me from SpaceX, but I think of the Starship development down at Boca Chica, where there's Spot robots that were down there that were doing inspection for gases and for smells. And they were saying, hey, before we have any type of humans entering this area, what's the temperature? Let's dive a little bit more into the mobile IoT of what Spot's capable of. I'm thinking, sensing for gases, thermal. But let's dive into more. What are some of the capabilities that can really impact a manufacturer for inspection beyond just like, is this machine running or not running, what we think of as the traditional predictive maintenance? Let's dive in a little bit more deeper that are areas that we have absolutely no idea where a leak could be.
Yeah, that's really good to dive deeper on that. I'll talk specifically about a couple sensing partners that we're working with. One is RDI, a non-contact vibration analysis camera, which is able to pull a lot more data points than a fixed vibration sensor. That's integrated to Spot, so we can actually move through the world detecting vibration that the human eye can't see.
So this is a device that sits on top of Spot. Spot then stays there, and then it's pointing at a machine and monitoring the whole machine for vibration.
That's exactly right. We've worked with Fluke out of Germany, Fluke and their partner company Sorama, to build an integration to the device they have called the SV600. Probably most people are familiar with the II900, which is a handheld device that finds leaks in pressurized systems, and manufacturing most commonly used for compressed air leaks. We know compressed air leaks cost a fortune in energy costs, right? And potentially also can cause downtime. We've done integration where that sensor, that SV600, is integrated to Spot and Spot's autonomy, so we can tell the robot to go and look in certain areas, looking for air leaks. So vibration, listening, and then thermal is the next big one. We've been working really hard on thermal integration. We have our own camera. It's just called the Spot Cam Plus IR, and we're able to do really specific thermal inspections on pieces of equipment. All of that data needs to get somewhere, right? So we've got some partners who have some AI that will analyze those results, and then even using our data acquisition service, send that data to SAP, Maximo, Oracle, creating work tickets so that stuff can be actioned. So there's a full sort of end-to-end thing we see where Spot plus sensor identifies an issue, and an algorithm validates or kind of figures out what things to call human attention to, and then alerts plus integrates with an existing enterprise asset management system. So that's where we're seeing kind of the biggest use. The other things would be just visual inspection. Change detection is a big one. So using AI algorithm from partners of ours, Spot can go take an image of something and then compare that image to what it should be, right? And we don't know what's different in the image. We just know there's something different that we should alert a person to. That could take on a lot of different forms, everything from, dead plates in a conveyor system to 5S boards, or, something's missing, to a human where there shouldn't be a human. There's a lot of ways we can use visual data to create alerts.
Yeah, I'm thinking, large manufacturing facilities that have, even massive conveyor systems, or the one thing I think is unique as well is, multiple levels, right? In a lot of areas, when you're going in through facilities, you have a lot of steps, you have a lot of areas, you have a lot of feet to travel in some of these massive facilities. And, the ability for a robot to do a lot of that stuff, I think that's one of those things as well. The robot has, and correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb or Vatche, the robot has the ability to be controlled with a remote, a joystick in a way that has a screen, and we could do that. But you also have the ability to then take that joystick, set those pre-positioned paths, and the robot can then do a lot of those inspections autonomously. So you don't have to go climb 7 levels on top of a large press facility to get up to a high level to look on top of a giant, 500-ton stamping press to see if you have oil leaks or leaking coming from the top of a press. You can have a robot go up there and do those, do that inspection. So we talked about thermal. We talked about vibration. Acoustic is another one, correct? Where you could actually listen for changes.
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of the facilities I go into, what I find out is there's 1 or 2 guys that can walk around the plant or walk around the floor and listen and go, oh, something's wrong. That bearing's going. So that's a really interesting thing, right? Can we capture audio data? And Spot with the Spot Cam Plus IR, we have a directional microphone, boom microphone. So Spot can be the tool that's collecting the data. Analyzing the data is another piece of the puzzle that has to be solved, but collecting the data is the biggest thing, right? In terms of building that ground truth data set, Spot's going to be able to go get that audio data of your assets so that you can start to benchmark what does good sound like, and then let's flag anything that isn't good. And so that sort of speaks also to one of the core value propositions that we're focused on, which is, you mentioned sort of the shortage and difficulties in staffing. Mm-hmm. You've also got people aging out and coming to retirement. And so we also find that these are jobs that no one wants to do. They're jobs that are boring or tedious. They could be doing other things that are more valuable. So Spot sort of filling this gap is pretty exciting. We're seeing some really good results from it.
Go I was just gonna say. Oh, sorry, Jake.
Yeah, I was gonna add on that real quick, Kim. As we're talking about, an aging workforce, there's a lot younger generations that are coming up with a better love for technology, and with technology, it comes of how can they program things, how can they better adapt automation to work for them rather than just trying to control it all the time. What is the autonomy that Spot can offer manufacturers in a way that it's less of a labor pull on their workforce? Vatche, you want to hit on that?
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is, to your point about, younger generation coming in, I know that I'm used to wearing a lot of multiple hats, and you've got folks coming in going, okay, this is a pretty tedious, repetitive job, and I know that this is something that I can probably find a way to do a little bit easier, to free me up to do a lot more higher value tasks like repair or maintenance and that sort of thing. And I think the Spot plays a big part of that, because it can do that tedious data collection and then allow you to be, get ahead of that other work. And on the autonomy side, I think when people think robot, they think, oh, this is super complex and it's going to take me forever to get this out on the site. But what's amazing about Spot is we've spent a lot of time working on this autonomy system where you can program your path. You can tell it, okay, when you come to this point, you're going to look here and you're going to take this picture, and then you're going to move to this next point. And then the amazing part of the autonomy system is if things change on that path, like someone leaves a cone or a trash can or something in that space, Spot is actually able to either find a way around that within a safety limit that you can control, or if the path has a way to alternatively go to that spot, Spot will go there and complete that mission. And like the ease of it can't be understated. People can get this up and running, doing that mission very, very quickly, all on this tablet. It's really easy to use.
Yeah, I think we forget about that. It's a dynamic device. It's not one of those things where it's a go to point A. If you can't make it to point B, stop. You have that
sit
flexibility
down.
to keep moving. If there's a pallet on the factory floor, it will just walk around that pallet. It's not going to stop as our typical an AGV would. Let's jump into some questions real quick. Let's go ahead. Let's do Jeremy's question first. Jeremy, you had a question here. What broadcasting wireless data transfer types can Spot support?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Spot is communications agnostic. It's its own access point. It communicates over TCP/IP. It speaks Ethernet. You can connect it to your enterprise network. You could connect an LTE modem to it. You can use mesh radios to communicate with it. Spot also has a gigabit Ethernet port at its docking station. So you have a hardwired connection when it sits on its dock. You can do batch data uploads. So there's a lot of different ways to handle that. We do have a data acquisition service. So the robot will hold data on its data buffer until it gets back, or if you've got really good comms via your existing infrastructure, you can do that in real time. You can also process on the edge using a compute device attached to the robot, process and store on the edge. So it all really depends on the use case as to which scenario is best. One thing I will add there too is that Spot can be used in what we call unsupervised mode, which means if you've taught it a path and you don't have good comms on that path, you can tell the robot to proceed anyway. And when it gets back to comms, move that data. So there's a bunch of different ways to approach that.
Awesome. And let's go ahead and then there was another question as well. Tanya, your question was, any cases using Spot for standard work checks to support operators, usage for waste elimination in their work like extra motion, transportation, inventory. How are we using Spot to train new operators?
Yeah, great question, Tanya. You're getting me excited. I'm thinking back on my computer vision days where we were using fixed cameras to build spaghetti models of how people are moving around in a facility. That a lot of times we find that fixed cameras tend to be the best solution for that type of thing. But That being said, while Spot's moving through an area, we have seen scenarios where people are looking for things like we call a human on the ground, maybe an injured human, or a human not wearing the right PPE gear, or there's different things related to safety, fire safety, looking at fire extinguishers and reading fire extinguisher gauges. There's things like that we can do. I would tend to be, based on my experience on the computer vision side, tend to think if you're going to really like focus on a work cell, and capture enough data to find inefficiencies, probably fixed cameras are your best solution there. But you could certainly stop Spot you have 90-minute battery life. You could certainly stop Spot and get some data, but we're not seeing a lot of that. And in terms of transportation and inventory, we have people doing RFID scanners on Spot to do inventory. We do have a couple instances where we have users who've built sort of these rack systems. So the customers that have built these sort of rack systems. Spot goes in, picks up a basket, raises his body, picks up a basket, and then transports that to another part of the facility. So there are, that one you have to look at through the lens of, is an AGV, is a wheeled or tracked robot better for this? Because typically that's what they're built for, right? They're built to move product. Spot can move product. It's not its primary use, but because of the payload limitations and things like that. But if you do have a scenario where it makes more sense to have legs, you could move product using Spot.
Yeah, that's great. And then Carl made a comment as well. Trimble has an impressive robotic scanning solution based on Spot. So yeah, I'll share this video real quick.
Yeah.
So this is me having lunch with Spot a couple weeks ago. So this is with a Trimble device. So yeah, one of those things where we talk about how do we build a digital twin of a manufacturing facility to know where a lot of the parts of the systems are present at every given time. It's a cool solution to have there.
Yeah, Trimble's a really valued partner of ours. I give my guy Chad at Trimble a shout out there. That's an amazing group. We're getting to work really closely with them in a lot of use cases.
Awesome. So I want to go back and let's make sure we hit on the conversation of, if you're to summarize where Spot fits in the world of Industry 4.0, I think is a buzzword we all hear: smart manufacturing, digital transformation. Where would you say to manufacturers who are looking at new ways to adapt new technology, where do you think Spot can help them the best?
Vatche, you want to take that, or should I take that? I'm happy to take it.
I thought you were ready to take it. So
okay. Yeah. So, everyone's looking to, we're throwing out a lot of terms, and we're being asked to do a lot of really difficult things, right? If in order to get to Industry 4.0, to get to predictive maintenance, we need mountains of data. And getting that data is cost prohibitive. It's just, we're just not in a good place where we can easily acquire lots and lots of data at a low price point. And so, we fix sensors to some equipment. We leave the majority to be inspected by humans. It's timely and somewhat annoying for a human to have to go do these sort of routine checks when they can be going and doing more valuable tasks. So Spot really does solve that data acquisition problem. We can go and get the data that's most meaningful to us. We can get it on a more frequent basis. We can be more consistent with the data. We can be more reliable with the data capture. Spot doesn't get sick. It takes the same image, every time. It doesn't take days off, and it's not really prone to error. So we can, in a very dependable, very sustainable, very reliable way, acquire that mountain of data that lets us get those predictive algorithms built and working in order to understand what's going on in our facility. What should we do in order to prevent downtime? I hope that answers your question.
No, that's great. And just as a recap, as we kind of get towards wrapping things up a little bit, if there are questions in the audience, please feel free to ask them. If we don't get those questions answered, feel free to follow up with Boss Dynamics. I'm sure they would love to answer those. But just a quick recap: we're here having a conversation around Agile. Mobile robotics, but the conversation does not stop here. If you want to learn more about Boss Dynamics and some of the conversations, there's the Robotics Summit and Expo in Boston. That's May 10th and 11th. Really just a few months away. And during that conversation, we're going to be having some awesome speakers. One of those featured keynotes is going to be Kevin from Boss Dynamics, and he's the vice president and general manager of Warehouse Robotics, and he's going to be having some great conversations as well, and how mobile robotics is impacting the space. So if you're not registered yet, go ahead and take a look at the Robotics Summit and Expo. I'll go ahead and I'll put a link here as well where you can go and check that out, roboticssummit.com. As we kind of wrap up some other questions, I really want to make a comment. I'm super passionate about the workforce. And I think it's one of those things where we are really seeing how robotics can excite a future workforce beyond just the impact that we're seeing Spot has on manufacturing. What are you seeing Spot having the ability to do to excite our kids who are in middle school and elementary school and high school about the impact that STEM and it can have? How do you see Spot and Boston Dynamics making a positive change in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jake. I mean, just the funniest thing about Spot is we take Spot out to some of these customer sites that have more traditional types of robots actively in use, assembling cars and things like that. But Spot still turns heads because it's just something like they've never seen before. And it feels like it moves like an animal. It kind of, it's sort of cute, right? And kids just get really excited about Spot, and they send us letters and really, really sweet notes to Spot. They want one. It really excites people. But I can't tell you how many times I've read in our social media messages, things like my 8-year-old is really wanting to get into engineering and robotics because of your YouTube videos. We'd love to learn more, and that type of stuff makes me really excited because it shows that we're really shaping what future generations think of robots when they think of robots, and it's really become a mascot for robotics in that way. And then in other ways, I think we've seen a lot of adoption or use of Spot in more educational settings because it's so accessible through things like open platform API. People are able to write code and do things with Spot very easily, and that's opened up a lot of opportunity for folks. Caleb, I don't know if you have more to add to that side.
Yeah, I can tell you, I did a Spot demonstration at my kids' middle school, and they were definitely the most popular kids in school for a few weeks. On a serious note, it's an inspiring platform. Inspiring people is part of why Boston Dynamics exists. We love to imagine what the future is going to hold when it comes to robotics, and we love to work towards that. We're seeing some really exciting things in the academic space that are testament to this, where we have a lot of universities that are purchasing Spot robots and actually adding Python courses for Spot into their accredited classes for undergraduates, and then going as far as to partner with local businesses to help them leverage and utilize Spot. We picked a Python SDK as our tool for developing on Spot, and then that's really intentional as a ubiquitous language that is being really focused on in school and in the workplace now. I think watching a robot move through the world the way Spot does and do the things that Spot can do is I've been seeing it now for years, and I'm still inspired by it every day. It's a really exciting platform, really exciting technology.
Yeah, and it's a platform, like I said, it's on multi-use. It's a platform to excite future kids in STEMs, but it's a platform that manufacturers can build on. That's the whole idea of why it's a mobile IoT device, because it's a platform that's interoperable, that encourages collaboration from other companies to develop solutions on top of.
Yeah.
As we wrap up the conversation, what is a question that, I guess, Vatche for you, and then Caleb for you as well, what is a question or a topic that you wish we would have brought up in this conversation as we wrap things up, as one final point?
Yeah, I think Caleb and I have been talking about this for quite some time, and I think one question we always get from folks that are we're spots new to them is, how do I get started? Because getting started with Spot seems like it could be challenging or difficult. So I asked Caleb, what do you think?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. I get that question a lot. I think the first thing people imagine, if they've worked with robotics in the past or maybe with drones, is just how hard or easy is it to operate? I've gotten a lot of people who've asked, like, how much programming is involved? The answer is none. Get this robot out, turn it on, and Jake, you've driven it.
Yeah.
Within 30, 60 seconds, you're going to feel pretty comfortable with it, operating it with the controller. And then in 5 or 10 minutes, you can be teaching the robot autonomous missions. See, there you are there. It's an incredibly intuitive tool. The robot is making decisions for you. I tell people, hit the throttle. The robot's going to figure it out. The robot's ability to dynamically make decisions about how it places its feet, how it navigates, what it avoids, is all really super intuitive. We built the robot really intentionally to be very simple to use. And then once it's in your facility, we tell people to do 3 things. The first thing is, take it where you want it to go. Make sure it can navigate successfully in your environment. And usually the answer is yes, it can. Stairs, graded floors, as you can see, grass, curves.
It's walking up a hill, going over a curb right now.
Yeah. The second thing we say is now see if you can teach the robot to go there autonomously. So creating what we call auto walk missions, which is very, very simple to do. And then the last thing is collect data autonomously. So can the robot go where you need it to go? Can it go there by itself? And can it get data while it's there? You can really successfully do all of those things in a very short amount of time. And that's the platform that you launch off of into your regular rounds and readings and your regular data collection autonomous missions. So it's quite doable. We have really good documentation. We have really good third-party partners and integrators who can assist with AI and sensors and all sorts of fun stuff. And then we have a tremendous support staff that will stand behind you and assist you in successfully using the robot.
Yeah, absolutely. A few of the companies, like for me, when I was driving that robot, it was one of the partners, Agile Robotics. That was where I was able to drive that robot from and play with that for a little bit. That was at the FedEx facility at their DART facility, not DARPA, DART facility. Any other, Caleb, that was kind of your wrap up, Vatche. Anything you kind of want to wrap up on as the takeaway, the question I would have asked you?
I was trying to get away by giving Caleb my question. No, I mean, I think, if folks are interested in exploring Spot and finding out, what it could do for their facility, I think, I'd really like, to go to our website and fill out the form and get in touch with our team and tell us a little bit about, what you're trying to do and schedule that conversation today. I think that's what I want to leave people with.
There you go. And I just posted that in the chat as well. So it's bostondynamics.com/spot.sales. As we wrap up the conversation, just a quick note. Thanks to the Robotics Summit Expo for helping us put this webinar together today. If you are looking for something to do, I would highly encourage you guys to go to Boston May 10th and 11th. I'm going to be there. I would assume Vatche and Caleb, you guys might be there as well. I forgot to ask, not only is Caleb a little bit more about Caleb here. Not only is he a massive robot enthusiast, he also has his green thumb side where he has a farm. He has bees. He is a brewer, and he raises his own animals. So I mean, it's one of those things is where he has the touch of the futuristic of robots, but at the same time the agricultural thumb as well.
Yeah,
it keeps him grounded, I think.
I'm doing my best to be a Renaissance man for sure.
Well, you're so far on the advanced side of technology a lot of the time. Sometimes you got to go to the other extreme just to have that balance out.
Yeah, in order to relax, I drive a tractor and take care of animals and tend to bees. That's my way of relaxing.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, I love that as well. For me, I mean, if I'm gonna have to figure out how to get some of your beer and bring it back from me from Boston, and maybe what I can do is I'll trade you some of my homemade rub that I do for when I smoke barbecue and brisket. Maybe we can swap some of my barbecue rub for some of your beer.
Consider it done.
But Vatche and Caleb, thank you guys so much for having an awesome conversation today. Once again, the audience as well. I love everyone who was attending. I think we had over 200 different viewers on today during the webinar. So that was a fantastic result. But yeah, if you want more information, join us at the Robotics Summit in Boston or visit bostonrobotics.com/spot sales to have some more questions. Until then, we'll see you guys in the next video, and we'll see you everyone soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.